Hi every wise reader. Welcome to the next video from Read Wiser, a YouTube channel dedicated to helping you improve yourself through books. Today, we're diving deep into the profound insights of man's search for meaning by the renowned Viktor Frankl. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. This powerful line from Nietzsche is the red thread that runs through one of the most important books of the 20th century. Have you ever wondered what separates those who crumble in a crisis from those who endure? What is the source of that unshakable inner strength? Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of Auschwitz, argues it's not a quest for pleasure or power, but a quest for meaning. His experience taught him that while we cannot control what happens to us, we always have the freedom to choose how we respond. This one idea has the power to change your life. So how did Frankl come to this profound conclusion, and how can we apply it to our own lives? This book is far more than just a Holocaust memoir. It's a deep psychological exploration of human resilience. Frankl's central thesis is that our primary drive, the very thing that gets us out of bed in the morning, is what he calls a will to meaning. When this will is frustrated, we fall into what he terms an existential vacuum, a feeling of profound emptiness. Frankl began developing these ideas before the war. He was a successful psychiatrist in Vienna, already working on his theory. But then his life was shattered. He and his family were arrested and deported. His manuscript, his life's work, was confiscated and destroyed. Suddenly, Frankl was no longer a doctor studying existential dread. He was a prisoner, number 119104, living it. The concentration camp became his brutal laboratory. He was forced to test his own theories in the most extreme conditions imaginable. His question was no longer academic. Can a person find any meaning, any purpose at all, in the face of such senseless, abject suffering? He wrote the first draft of this book in just 9 days after his liberation, intending to publish it anonymously. He never aimed for success. In fact, he famously said, "Don't aim at success, it must ensue," as the unintended side effect of one's dedication to a cause greater than oneself. He believed the book's massive success was not a personal win, but a sign of the misery of our time, a sign that we are all desperately searching for meaning. His search begins with his raw, personal experience. To understand this book's power, we first need to look at the foreword by Harold Kushner. Kushner, who himself wrote, "When Bad Things Happen to Good People," frames this book as one of the great and profoundly religious works of our time. He argues its core message is that life is a quest for meaning, not a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or a quest for power, as Adler taught. Kushner points out that the book's power comes from its brutal honesty. Frankl's theory of logotherapy, which Kushner defines as curing the soul by leading it to find meaning, gains its incredible credibility because it was born against the background of his anguish in Auschwitz. It's not just a theory, it's a hard-won truth. He highlights what he calls Frankl's most enduring insight. This is the one idea that, if you take nothing else away, will change you. Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control what you feel and do about it. This is what Frankl saw in the camps. Suffering itself is meaningless. It's just a brute fact. But as Kushner notes, we give our suffering meaning by the way in which we respond to it. Frankl saw that the prisoners who lost all hope, who had no why to live for, were inevitably the first to die. They died less from lack of food and more from a lack of meaning. So the key takeaway is that our ultimate freedom is our power to choose our attitude, and this choice is what gives life meaning. But what about Frankl himself? What was his attitude about the book's incredible success? This leads us to his own preface, which contains a powerful lesson about success and happiness. In his preface, Viktor Frankl addresses the book's massive success, but he doesn't celebrate it. Instead, he says its bestseller status is an expression of the misery of our time. He argues that if hundreds of thousands of people are reaching for a book about the meaning of life, It must be a question that burns under their fingernails. This leads to his core argument in the preface, a piece of advice that is just as profound as the main book. He tells his students, don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you are going to miss it. Why? Because success, just like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue. What does that mean, it must ensue? Frankl explains that success is the unintended side effect of one's dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. You have to let it happen by not caring about it. Instead, you should listen to what your conscience commands you to do and carry it out to the best of your ability. Then, in the long run, success will follow you precisely because you had forgotten to think of it. He proves he lived by this. He originally wrote the book in 9 days and wanted to publish it anonymously. His goal wasn't fame. It was to show that life holds a potential meaning under any conditions. He even chose to let his American visa lapse and stay in Vienna with his parents, sacrificing his career and safety for his duties as a real child. He lived his message before he ever became famous for it. The key message here is to stop chasing success and happiness as goals. Instead, find a higher purpose and success will come as a byproduct. This idea was validated by his time in the camps, which he describes in part 1. So what did he actually experience, and how did it forge these beliefs? Let's enter the world of the camp. In part 1, Experiences in a Concentration Camp, Frankl argues that survival was not just a matter of luck, health, or chance. Ultimately, it was an inner decision. He saw that even in the most dehumanizing conditions, a person always retains the last of the human freedoms, the power to choose their own attitude. This inner freedom was the one thing the guards could not take away. Frankl documents the 3 psychological phases every prisoner went through. The first was shock. Upon arrival, many prisoners lived in a delusion of reprieve, a naive hope that it wouldn't be that bad. This was quickly shattered. The second and longest phase was apathy. This was an emotional death, a necessary protective shell. Prisoners became numb to the daily horrors, a blunting of all feelings just to survive. The third phase, for those who were liberated, was disillusionment. They dreamed of freedom for years, but when it finally came, they found they had lost the ability to feel joy. The world they returned to felt unreal. This state of apathy forced a prisoner's life down to a primitive level, where they dreamed and talked only of food. And yet Frankl made a profound discovery. Despite this cultural hibernation, a deepening of spiritual life was possible. Prisoners found refuge in an intensification of inner life. They would be moved to tears by the sight of a sunset, or they would find salvation in the loving contemplation of a spouse. Frankl himself found his salvation by vividly imagining conversations with his wife, and her image was more luminous than the sun. But the single most critical factor was having a hold on the future. Frankl called the camp a provisional existence of unknown limit. Since no one knew when or if it would end, it was easy to cease living for the future. And the moment a prisoner lost faith in a future goal, whether it was to see a loved one again or, in Frankl's case, to rewrite his stolen manuscript, they were doomed. Their will to live became paralyzed, and their body would soon follow. He saw men who died not from starvation, but from a loss of hope. The takeaway is shattering. The sort of person the prisoner became was the result of an inner decision, and not the result of camp influences alone. This is the existential validation for his entire life's work. This experience forms the foundation of his psychiatric theory, logotherapy. So how does this theory work? And how can it help us find meaning in our own lives, not just in extreme suffering? Let's explore logotherapy in a nutshell. In part 2, Logotherapy in a Nutshell, Frankl presents his third Viennese school of psychotherapy. He argues that humanity's primary drive isn't a will to pleasure, like Freud said, or a will to power, like Adler said. It's a will to meaning. This is the core of his entire philosophy. He says that when this will to meaning is frustrated, it results in what he calls noogenic neuroses. These aren't caused by traditional psychological conflicts, but by existential problems. The main symptom of this is the existential vacuum. This is the mass neurosis of the present time, that widespread feeling of inner emptiness, of boredom, the sense that life is meaningless. Frankl says this vacuum is why we see so much depression, aggression, and addiction in modern society. We've lost our old traditions and instincts, and we don't know what to do. So how does logotherapy cure this? Frankl says the therapist's job is to help the patient find their concrete, unique meaning. He makes a critical point. Mental health is not a tensionless state. He rejects the idea of homeostasis. Instead, he says we need a healthy tension, which he calls no dynamics. This is the tension between what you are and what you ought to accomplish, the gap between your current self and the meaning you are reaching for. This tension is what makes you grow. Logotherapy says you can discover this meaning in one of three ways. First, by creating a work or doing a deed, your achievements. Second, by experiencing something or encountering someone through beauty, or most importantly, through love. And third, and this is his most famous point, by the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. This third path means that even a person in a hopeless situation can find meaning by how they bear their burden. Frankl also introduces a powerful technique called paradoxical intention. For a patient who fears, say, sweating in public, the doctor advises them to try to sweat. To say, I'm going to show people how much I can sweat. This short-circuits the anticipatory anxiety, and the fear often disappears. The core message of logotherapy is that we shouldn't ask what we expect from life, but rather what life expects from us. We are the ones being questioned, and our answer is our responsibility. This leads to his final powerful argument, the case for a tragic optimism. What does this mean, and how can we be optimistic in a world full of pain, guilt, and death? Let's find out. In the postscript, The Case for a Tragic Optimism, Frankl confronts the hardest question: how can we remain optimistic in a world that contains so much suffering? His answer is tragic optimism, an optimism in the face of tragedy. It's the ability to say yes to life in spite of everything. He says this is possible because life remains potentially meaningful under any conditions. He asks us to look directly at the tragic triad, the three unavoidable realities of human existence: pain, guilt, and death. But instead of seeing them as reasons for despair, he reframes them as opportunities for meaning. First, pain. We can turn our suffering into a human achievement and accomplishment. As he proved in Part 1, the attitude we take toward our suffering is a testament to our inner freedom. Second, guilt. We can derive from our guilt the opportunity to change oneself for the better. Guilt shows us where we have fallen short and gives us the chance to become a better person. And third, death. We can derive from life's transitoriness an incentive to take responsible action. The fact that our time is limited is precisely what makes every moment so precious. It challenges us to make the best possible use of each moment. Frankl fiercely argues against what he calls pan-determinism, the belief that we are just a product of our biology or environment. He famously said that in Auschwitz, the individual differences did not blur. Instead, people became more different. The camps unmasked themselves, both the swine and the saints. This proves we are not victims of conditions. We are the authors of our decisions. Finally, this optimism is rooted in the unconditional value of each and every person. He makes a crucial distinction between dignity and usefulness. Our society adores people who are useful, who are successful and productive. But Frankl warns that a person's value, their dignity, is not based on their usefulness. It is based on the values they have realized in the past. It is unconditional. This, he says, is the only belief that can stand against the nihilism that leads to gas chambers. His experiences in the camps taught him what man is capable of for both good and evil, and what is truly at stake. So what is the final, lasting message of man's search for meaning? It's a profound shift in perspective. Frankl's journey through the provisional existence of the camps and his later work as a psychiatrist all point to one truth: the will to meaning is the most powerful force in our lives. He shows us that happiness and success are phantoms. If you chase them, they will elude you. But if you dedicate yourself to a cause, to another person, or to the challenge of bearing your suffering with dignity, they will ensue as a natural byproduct. He rejects the existential vacuum of modern life, that feeling of inner emptiness, and replaces it with noodynamics, the healthy, purposeful striving toward a future goal. The climax of the book is not a single event, but a single idea, the last of the human freedoms. In a world that can strip you of your job, your home, your health, and even your family, the one thing that can never be taken away is your freedom to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. Frankl's final message is that life is, ultimately, not about asking what you can get. It's about responding to what life asks of you. Each of us is being questioned by life daily and hourly. Our answer cannot be in words but in right action and in right conduct. Frankl's entire life was a testament to finding his why, which allowed him to bear any how. So what is the why that you are living for? What is the one thing, the cause, the person, or the unfinished work that gives your life meaning? And how can you apply Frankl's freedom to choose in a difficult situation you're facing right now? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found value in this summary, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to Read Wiser for more insights that help you improve yourself through books. Thanks for watching.